I think the ultimate deciding factor is really the younger age group, the under 30, even in high school, middle school. I mean, it just depends on the business. We're the consumers at the end of the day. Younger people are really the decision makers.
Hey everyone, it's Amy Lynn Durham, and you're listening to Create Magic at Work. Create Magic at Work is on a mission to equip senior leaders with tools they need to be a true quantum leader and actually understand what that means. Improve employee engagement, retain top talent, and transform your workplace culture to have less drama and stress. So let's start making magic. Today's conversation is something I've been excited to share with you because we're hearing directly from the next generation of leaders. My guest, JC Carr, is fresh out of college, already stepping into a leadership role at World Emblem and building his own entrepreneurial ventures on the side. I want you to listen to this through the lens of what can we learn from a Gen Z perspective. You're not going to hear decades of theory or corporate jargon. You're going to hear what leadership looks like at the very beginning of a career, the hopes, the challenges, and the fresh eyes on systems we've been in for years. I think there's something really powerful in giving space to these voices and noticing what excites them, what concerns them, and what keeps them moving forward. Hey everyone, welcome back to Create Magic at Work. Today is a super fun day for me because I'm interviewing JC Carr. And let me tell you a little bit about JC before we get into this conversation I can't wait to get into. So JC is a current team member at World Emblem, a global manufacturer with 1,800 plus employees across US, Mexico, and international locations. He is also a successful entrepreneur who built a thriving exotic car brokerage business while still in college. JC has pioneered philanthropy initiatives both within his own ventures and at World Emblem. He's passionate about implementing lean management principles in both business and personal contexts. We're going to get into that. He's uniquely positioned at the intersection of traditional manufacturing, digital influence, and next-gen leadership. This is one of the reasons I have JC on Create Magic at Work today. We're going to be talking about next generation leadership to someone who is next generation, someone from Gen Z. I'm loving this. JC brings a refreshing authenticity to conversations about leadership succession, how to create connections between different generations. So we actually get to hear from someone in the Gen Z generation talking about this on Create Magic at Work versus someone that's been Gen X, millennial, or boomer, because we have talked about building these bridges on the show in the past, but we haven't heard the Gen Z voice yet. So I'm excited to put this out on the airwaves. His story resonates with established professionals, young entrepreneurs, and anyone that's looking to make their mark and leave a legacy. So JC, welcome to Create Magic at Work.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So tell us a little bit about your work at World Emblem and what helps you do this role. It's a family business. And so that's had to have shaped your perspective on leadership. Tell us a little bit of some of the lessons you're learning from your Gen Z lens working at World Emblem.
Yeah, it's a little interesting. I graduated college last May, started working in our production for 4 months, and then continuous improvement. What that is just finding issues throughout the business and looking at ways to be able to solve them. At the time, the majority of the team was over 40 years old. I was 22. So being able to have the just younger age group lens, there were a lot of minor issues that I saw, nothing major, didn't get to that point, but minor issues that I don't know if somebody of that age would have been able to find. In January, I switched over to a service director. So I'm now on a team of 19 in service, been there for about 10 months. I'm there until the end of next year. That's been interesting as well. Again, same thing. I was the first person on the team under the age of 35, obviously the only person without a family. So it's been a little different traveling as much as I am versus seeing the amount that other people have to travel when they have kids, a house. So that's been interesting as well.
Yeah. You mentioned that you were seeing things that other people might not see. I'm curious about that. As a Gen Z leader, what do you think older generations misunderstand most about your generation in the workplace?
I don't know if it's them missing. I think it's this, like I came from university, graduated, started working here, and it might just be that they're working somewhere for so long that things might slip through the cracks. One thing that I specifically implemented at World Emblem was our charity initiative. This year, we're doing a huge toy drive at the end of the year. That was previously an event that I ran through my other company, Whips Miami. Additionally, we're doing different events throughout the company at our various locations. So that's Houston, Atlanta, Mexico. And by the end of the year, we're going to have Dominican Republic, and we'll be having events ran out of there next year. So I think that's a really big thing for young adults, 18 to 22, just being at college, even kids in high school. Like I remember it was kind of not forced, but thrown in our face a lot that volunteer work and giving back is super important. That when you get to 10, 15 years working at a company, maybe those things you just forget about, especially when you have kids, you're growing up.
That's really a really interesting perspective that you're sort of seeing stepping into what older generations might be missing. Is that philanthropy aspect? Is that was what your sense was when you stepped into your role? Is that what you're saying?
It is. I it could have just been the culture here. But again, like what I've seen is just people get to a certain time in their lives, their main things that they're focusing on are a little bit different than somebody my age who has maybe more time during the day or on the weekends than somebody that has a lot more priorities.
Yeah. I think that's so interesting that that's your perspective and what you're seeing, considering when we sort of look at the overall algorithm on social media about Gen Z, there tends to be a lot of complaining about their work ethic. At least I see jokes, right? Like the memes or the oh my Gen Z person. In fact, I've seen one recently where it shows boomers coming to work. They're super happy with the Monday through Friday office job, 50 hours a week. It's okay with that. Or the joke like, I'm going to have surgery on Friday, so I'll be gone for 2 hours, but I'll be back. That kind of thing, maybe with like Gen X or the boomers. And then I see the joke switch to Gen Z where like, they're like, I'm not even asking you permission to take a vacation. I'm just taking one. Or I'll be, they're into like that whole flexible work dynamic. And frankly, I don't think that's a joke. I think they're kind of onto something. They're onto the systems that we've been working in that just don't really feel good or feel like there's this zest for life. And I can see that Gen Z is bringing that back in their own way. How do you see Gen Z reshaping these traditional industries or systems?
I think it depends where you work. My biggest take on it is COVID put a real dent in my age group. I mean, our first expectations of the work life is virtual. A lot of people virtual, a lot of people hybrid, and then you have these companies that are saying, "Hey, you guys were hybrid, or you guys were only working from home. You're fired in 2 weeks if you don't report to the office Monday to Friday." Do I agree with that? It depends on the company. I definitely think that time being spent working from home for some people is being thrown in the garbage. I don't know how much of substance you're getting done at home. However, to the other side of it, there's some people I know who, when they work at home, they're significantly more productive and they're able to get a lot more stuff done. There's less distractions. They're happier. They're able to hang out with their pets, their families, while they get to get their work done. So there's two different sides of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's flexible and it's like what works best for the individual and the company kind of combined together in that synergy. What's your experience like at World Emblem as sort of the Gen Z leader there, bringing on these fresh ideas and fresh perspectives? Because here at Create Magic at Work, I was kind of telling you before we started recording, we do the archetypes of change, and there's different ways that people respond to change. And there isn't a bad archetype or a good archetype. There's just different ways we relate to change. But what I'm thinking of right now is the placeholder is one of the archetypes, which is the person that really loves like the past and loves to hear stories about the past and the way the company was built, and they want to hold on to things like that. And I would imagine you're coming in with more of an edge walker vibe where you're sort of visioning new things that can happen in the future. And I'm just curious on how you're navigating that.
So yeah, this entire company is an Ed Walker person. We are constantly moving forward. We're constantly changing, disrupting the market. That's why we've been able to grow so significantly over the last 5 years post COVID. For us to make it out of COVID, we had to quickly change and come up with new ideas. We recently, 6 weeks ago, hired two more young adults my age, both recently graduated from college. We're hiring four more by the end of the year, so on and so forth. We're going to continue doing it. It's been interesting for me. However, the entire company, like we're blasting this week's like big thing that we're working on is AI. And I think that's going to follow through to the end of the year is how can we implement AI more in the company? How can we continuously disrupt the market and be on top of what's new?
So, on that note, JC, you have talked about lean management. So let's talk about that, right? Because I know we had our own conversation about this before, but I want to talk about it so all the Create Magic at Work community can hear this. In our executive coaching space, when we run into leaders that have big visions, like disrupting the market, like integrating AI, like all of these cool things that sound exciting, often in our work, we're seeing a disconnect between that visionary leader and the people that they want to come along with them for that vision, with that vision, because then fear comes up and people think, oh, now I don't have job security. AI is going to take my job, or I want to make sure I'm still wanted or I feel needed. And this scares me. And so tell us a little bit about your lean management strategy that I felt when you were telling me about it was like really human centered, actually.
Yeah, lean manufacturing. It came out of Toyota. It's their way of operating. They've had this since the last 70 years. And as you can see, they were almost out of business, and they adapted this way of making day-to-day jobs simpler and easier, cutting waste, cutting time, and over time they've grown as a company. We're the same way since 2017 when we started using this form of lean manufacturing. I don't typically like the word lean because it's not getting rid of people, it's cutting waste. And waste is throwing out materials, eliminating the use of electricity if it's not needed. But since 2017, we've hired an additional 1,000 World Emblem partners. So there hasn't been this eliminating of people. Additionally, we're an emblem company. We produce 1 million patches a day for the entire country, the entire world. I don't foresee in the next couple of years of something as drastic as AI completely changing the market. There's ways we can make day-to-day simpler through AI. We all use Claude and ChatGPT. Whenever I'm planning my trips to go see clients, I'll actually put where I'm going in ChatGPT. That's not eliminating jobs. That's making my job easier. And for all the service and sales representatives that we have working here, all the marketing partners, and just throughout the company, there really isn't that much that AI will replace, in my opinion.
Mhm. When you stepped into this role and you were first seeing some ways that philanthropy could be sort of implemented, what was some of the feedback you were getting when you were sharing some of these new ideas? Was it just easy and everybody jumped on board, or like how did you integrate that?
I think the biggest thing is the time. Where are we going to absorb the time? Is that everyone takes off a Friday, which is not a problem at all, and we go somewhere and volunteer. We're at the end of this year, we're actually partnering up with a women's home in Atlanta, and we're going to be able to help them out there. In November, we're doing a huge toy drive for the Boys and Girls Clubs, and we're super excited for that. Last year, we were able to donate over $100,000 in monetary and physical toys. So we're excited to just keep moving forward with that kind of initiative.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about how you feel that's transformed you and your leadership and the culture of your company.
From World Emblem standpoint, we're kind of breaking into doing a lot with philanthropy. My family is a part of MAD, which is Mothers Against Drunk Driving. That's been the biggest charity we've been a part of over the last couple of years. However, as I'm stepping in and I'm kind of joining a little bit, I'd like to branch out a little bit to the toy drive that I've been continuing to do through Whips Miami and bring it over to World Emblem and see if there's more connections to be able to give back significantly more than last year.
So if someone's listening that has a business, like their own entrepreneur journey or their own business, or if somebody's listening that's an executive of a large organization, what would you say to them to encourage incorporating philanthropy into their work? What's maybe one step someone could take towards that, and why?
I'm a big believer in like whatever you give out comes back to you. From an executive standpoint, I think no executive that you're sharing it with at your company is going to be opposed to doing charitable work throughout your area. A younger person, same thing. I think for them it might be a little bit more difficult, just maybe less connections. However, there's charities all over, and I live in Fort Lauderdale. There's 100 charities here that I could be a part of if I decided to. I decided to go my own route and kind of start my own charitable organization. I did it in 2020 when I didn't have any connections. It was super small at the time, and now we've grown over the last couple of years. So, I mean, I think the answer is just start.
Oh, just start. Sorry, I didn't hear you say that. I heard you say the answer is, and I was like, what's the
Yeah,
answer,
sorry.
JC?
Yeah, just start.
So the answer is just start. Yeah.
Yeah.
The dramatic pause. Yeah, the answer is just start. Hey everyone, Amy here. Let's talk about work realities for a second. Whether you're dealing with a tough boss, struggling with team miscommunication, feeling stuck in decision making, let's be real, work drama exists and it's exhausting. But it doesn't have to be this way. At Create Magic at Work, we help leaders like you cut through the chaos, build next level communication skills, and make better, faster decisions without the stress spiral. Whether you're leading a team or just trying to keep your sanity at work, we've got your back. We coach executives and teams like yours to develop interpersonal savvy, drive engagement, and bring your vision and purpose to life so work actually feels energizing again. Imagine that. More engagement, more productivity, less drama. Our executive coaching team has been in your shoes. We've led teams, navigated workplace challenges, and know what it takes to help you succeed and achieve your goals. Real experience, real talk, and real results. If you're thinking, yes, Amy, we need this at my work, then let's talk. Click the link in the show notes and let us help you and your teams become a high-performing, engaged, and productive force of clarity and calm. I'll see you in the Zoom room. Let's throw the stress and drama out the window. Click on the link in the show notes. I'm thinking from the spiritually intelligent lens, or, I'm a spiritual intelligence certified coach as well as executive coach. And I'm thinking this is amazing because what this is doing by definition is helping people tap into a deeper sense of meaning in their lives that helps all of us feel like we're making an impact at a greater level. So something bigger than ourselves, right? Like kind of putting our ego aside. And our ego is kind of that place that within us that comes from fear or defensiveness or protectiveness or scarcity, that scarcity feeling. And it's helping us kind of get out of our own way and operate from that quantum leader perspective where our business decisions are rippling out not only for our employees and for shareholders and for customers, but for the communities that surround us, for the planet, and for humanity as a whole. And I just love that you are freshly graduated, right, from the University of Alabama. How recent?
May of 24.
Okay. And here you are like, yeah, the first thing I did when I walked into the company I'm working for is started implementing philanthropy initiatives. Like that was the gap that I saw that was missing when I stepped into this role. And it's like, oh my gosh, how cool is that? Because now you're helping everyone connect to a deeper sense of meaning in their life than just showing up to work and punching the clock and leaving or, whatever that looks like. So I just wanted to amplify that for you and echo that back for you that I'm seeing that. So what would your advice be to young professionals, to fresh college graduates that are stepping into leadership roles in the workplace today?
I think it's hard, especially in 2025. You did bring up like the AI. I think that's going to wreck the job market. I have friends that are just graduated recently, and it's been significantly more difficult for them to get a job. So if you are able to step into a role, let alone a leadership role, it's a big deal. And yeah, I mean, it's hard.
But we just also talked about how you have used AI in World Emblem from a cutting waste perspective to actually increase the workforce, right?
Yeah, but we're a production company. I mean, there's hundreds of companies out here that are transversing from 200 employees to 50 because now they can implement AI. I think the biggest markets right now to get into are jobs that are never going to be replaced by AI.
So, on that note, how you mentioned like it feels really hard for some Gen Z people that are entering the workforce, I wanted to talk to you about your entrepreneur venture because this is like a new, fresh way that people can also expand in their own way in the workplace is by being an entrepreneur, starting their own business. And you are doing that. So, what led you to start your entrepreneurial venture? And tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so COVID happened, and I saw on Instagram just scrolling through that there was a very aggressive lease deal on a McLaren 720S, which at the time was about $500,000. The lease deal was so insane that the guy that posted I was friends with messaged me and said, "Hey, if you sell it, I'm going to send you this amount of money." And over the next couple months, 6 months, a year, was just constantly posting, selling, posting, selling, posting, selling. And as the market started to slow down, I realized I had to change if I wanted to continue bringing in money from this platform. And I switched over to service. So it was actually servicing these cars, but I wasn't doing the actual servicing. I was only middlemaning it, which is a very unique business, I think, to Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, and really across the world. I don't know where else it's possible. So I ran that all throughout college, brokering, servicing cars. And I think it just started just from a quick idea, and I tried it out and it worked. Not 100%, but it still worked.
Love it. So, you saw an opportunity, you decided to take a risk. And that's the whole thing about being an edge walker is having a vision, sensing what's next, and then the risk-taking piece, taking that small risk and the risk that you take when something great starts coming from it, that starts building that self-belief muscle, right? Like, "Oh, I could do this." So for everybody listening, like your Gen Z counterparts, our Gen Z counterparts, our Gen Z colleagues, I think that's really encouraging to hear that you took a risk and you learned something from it and you're growing a business from it. And even if it didn't work out, you would have learned something, right? Like from the mistakes, maybe tried another iteration of something else because I can hear your care and the care that you have for like your friends and everybody that's entering into the workforce that you know. Like how can we do this differently? How can we see opportunities differently? We were talking that about that a little bit also. And I just know that I'm really encouraged by this conversation just by the fact that you're sharing, oh, well, here's the gaps I saw when I stepped into this large company. The gaps were we weren't doing any philanthropy work. And it's like, oh my gosh, how cool is that? Or like, oh, I saw an opportunity to start my own business and I'm doing that on the side as well. And so for me, looking at you, you're like playing with new ways we can work. What can work look like? And you're playing with that. Yeah. Comments on that?
No, I completely agree. To me, it's fun. So with change, there's going to be a lot of new opportunities. There's going to be new ways of doing things. And I think the ultimate deciding factor is really the younger age group, the under 30, even in high school, middle school. I mean, it just depends on the business. We're the consumers at the end of the day. Younger people are really the decision makers on a small scale, but they also, as we get older, it's a weird time. So I'm excited.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you're here and that you're kind of sharing your perspective with the Create Magic at Work listeners. When you think about the future of business and leadership, what excites you the most?
I think the constant change, it's fun. When you're involved in the change, it's fun. And I think we're all involved in it, right? It just depends on how much you want to be involved in it, how much time you're investing and kind of what space you decide to go into. But with all these new technologies and all these new things coming out, we'll see some dramatic changes over the next 10 years that we're all going to get to be a part of. So that part to me is fun.
And if you could share like any words of hope for your Gen Z colleagues that might feel like they are going through a hard time, maybe they're graduating college and they're entering the workforce and they feel like, oh, there's not much here for me, or this doesn't feel like this is lighting up my life, or this doesn't feel energizing. What is some words of hope or some words of advice you would offer them?
No, I mean, I completely understand. It's typical graduating school, leaving your friends. I will say though, take advantage of every second and opportunity that you get because as things are changing, you're one conversation away from a completely different life, especially now.
I love that. Just look at everything as like a stepping stone, like you're on a journey.
Yeah. And you're right there. You're one conversation away from changing your life. I heard that a couple of years ago and it's helped me a lot. So
That's awesome. All right, I'm going to pull a card for you and for everyone listening from the Create Magic at Work journal prompt card deck. We're going to get a message today from the universe, and then you get to answer a question for everybody that's on the card. Let's see what we get today. We got mentorship. This is kind of exactly what you're doing. I think you can be a mentor at any age, right? The affirmation is I willingly share knowledge with others in order to leave a positive legacy. So, for everyone listening and for all of us this week, I willingly share knowledge with others in order to leave a positive legacy. So, JC, if you were going to give all of us your advice, how can we seek mentorship? All of us, no matter the age. What's some advice? Like you just said, you're one conversation away from a completely different life. So how can we be encouraged to seek out those conversations or seek out that mentor? What's something we can do to take a step towards that?
I'll use myself for example. Every single time I go out, if it's a Friday or Saturday night, I go to dinner with my friends or I go to a bar, I make it a point to talk to at least 5 different people, any age, any gender, and connect with them. I've made more connections and sold more cars from talking to people, going to car shows. That's just because it's the space, but going to a restaurant and talking to people, going to a high-end gym, the airport, like sitting in a lounge, sitting and waiting for something, being able to connect with people because you'll either make a connection for yourself, a connection for one of your friends, and in turn, that'll come back to you 1,000 times.
Yeah, I love that. I love that last piece is like making the connections not just for yourself, but because maybe you're going to connect a task or an idea to someone you know to them as well. So you're sort of like helping everybody in this like connection. And that's not networking. That's like high level connecting, right? When you can see tasks and ideas and start connecting and helping other people because then the same thing will start happening for you. So I love that you're doing that. Thank you so much for being a guest on Create Magic at Work. If people want to just connect with you and if they're curious about your work, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, so through LinkedIn, which is my name, JC Carr, or you can send me an email at jccarr at worldemblem.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing your Gen Z perspective with everyone today. And it was super encouraging. I just so appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things I love about conversations like this is that they remind us of the importance of perspective. JC isn't trying to have all the answers, and that's the point. He's showing us what leadership feels like right now at this moment in time for someone stepping into the workplace from the Gen Z generation. As leaders, mentors, and colleagues, we can either dismiss those voices or we can create space to learn from them. My hope is that this episode helps you reflect on how we bridge the generational gap and co-create the future of work together. Because sometimes, like JC reminded us, we're all just one conversation away from a completely different life. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming back every week to listen to a new episode of Create Magic at Work and really helping to support and advocate for healthy leaders, workplaces, and lives for all of us. If you want any information on how to connect with me, click on the link in the show notes. You'll get access to all of the social media links for Create Magic at Work. Stay following along for more amazing episodes where we help you improve productivity and profitability in the workplace and decrease stress. Sending magic to everyone, and see you next time.